just because you're into spirituality, awakening, psychedelics, or conspiracies, or you're one of us in this kind of community. Maybe you're in my group chats. I got group chats on Instagram and Snapchat, and my Discord is full of like-minded people, right? I often say we're all on the same mission when it comes to spirituality, and we are in a sense, but I want to make something clear that, and I realised this a few months ago, and it come to be that this realisation transformed myself and my worldviews and the way I talk and my channel, etc. So it's just that just because you're awake, I made a video literally under this same name before, basically, but it's that, like, just because you have like, maybe you have had authentic awakenings, whether through psychedelics or not, and that's like, I started my channel about 2 years ago, and I was having very like transcendental experiences through psychedelics, and what only I could deem as awakenings, at least, or so it saw to me objectively. Like, whether you want to say if it was delusion or not, regardless, the subjective experience is you kind of believe, or or you feel that you're awakening, or just not even necessarily in like a very super metaphysical sense. You can awake even in, like, some of my first awakenings were just internal empowerment, like, for my ego, like where I was just like growing and feeling better about myself in the world, etc. But what I realized basically is that just because I had these experiences doesn't mean that you're like inherently, of course you're not better than anyone in the ultimate sense, but what I mean is, like, basically nothing is black and white. That's one of my best insights that I've realized over time, is that black and white thinking is really like a lack of depth of, because nothing's really black and white. Everything is quite infinitely complex, and there's a lot of nuance and diversity. Oh, it's multifaceted. So it's not simply you're awake or you're not awake. Like, what I'm saying is, it's easy to, like, basically, if I see anyone on Instagram with like 369 in their username, I'll literally just follow them, because we're all kind of the part of the same community, and we all have our different nuances and details. But I'm talking holistically with the spiritual community, people who are interested in, like, like the whole thing: spirituality, psychedelics, holistic healing, grounding, just health in general. And I'm basically saying, like, don't fool yourself. There are so many different degrees to awakening. Like, here's a good point. If awakening, like, it's all good, yeah, well, I'm a spiritually awake, maybe you've reached a non-dual state, or nirvana, whatever the fuck it's called, or you've reached samadhi, or there's loads of different names for different, right, so you reached enlightenment. Alright, that's good. But do you still have the bad habit of, like, being really disorganized so that it's hard to function in the world, and you keep, like, leaving shit behind? Like, you leave the door and you think you've got this stuff on you, and then you realize, oh, actually I was just being thick and I wasn't paying attention. I know that's a very particular example, but that's what I'm saying. It's like, what good is being awake? And maybe you can be awake, but it's like, alright, that's all good, but are you a rude cunt? Do you, like, you know what I mean? Like, what about everything else? So, like, people are, like, you can get very fooled. Like, you can be awake and you can have an awakening, and yeah, it does kind of give you everything back, and it's like the most amazing thing, and that is an authentic experience. But at the same time, you're still really broke and you're at a dead job that you hate, and for the most part, you don't want to be there, really. You know, you're built for more in the world. So that's what I'm saying. It's like, you can meet spiritual people, but they're actually just very different to you. Don't expect everyone to be the same. And that's what, before I got on the podcast, I started doing my podcast and stuff about a year ago, with like psychedelic actualization, Mr. Nature, Ms. Sunshine, Adeptus Psychonautica, etc. And I used to say when we got on them, like, you know, we're all part of the same thing. You know, we're all like, you know, we're all on the same mission. We've all been to the similar realms, so it'll be easy to just have a conversation. You know, because like-minded people, and for the most part, it works, and it is true. But then also, like, don't expect to like I'm a very communal person. Don't get me wrong. If you know who Leo Gura is, like, he is kind of the opposite, where he can, like. And I feel like he's a good person who will understand what I mean, and I feel like this insight might have partly come from him, but it's just clear to observe that, yeah, there can just be like, there's so many different kind of spiritual people, and yeah, I remember Leo Gura saying, like, you know, people can say or think they're spiritual, but they don't actually really do much spiritual sort of shit in terms of meditation, breath work, psychedelics, self-inquiry. They don't act like, you know what I mean, they just and a lot of them just do it in a very shallow way. I'm quite extreme with it, I think, because of how, like, some of my trips I had, they were so deep and often fucked up in my early days. Like when I was like 16, I had some super terror trips and shit like that, and I feel like that kind of like bootstrapped me to like actually give a fuck about these kind of realms, when most people haven't really seen those depths. Like, people can say they're like spiritual and that, but they're not, like, you know, there's different degrees. Like, for example, I met a spiritual friend, but he was eating KFC and shit, and I said to my other spiritual mate, I was like, well, he reckons he's all awake and that, but he's eating KFC, and she's like, nah, I'm sorry, bruv, if you're eating KFC, you're not awake. That's what I mean. There's different, like, obviously, they're all just, like, illusory distinctions, ultimately. It's like, these distinctions between awake or not just don't even really, they're just projections. They're not inherently actually there, just making them up, but yeah, it's just basically, be careful, don't fool yourself in thinking that you're the dog's bollocks and that you've got everything figured out just because you've had some crazy enlightenment on psychedelics or something. Like, you don't expect that in 2 years you won't evolve. That's what I'm saying, is you're not at the end of everything. Like, you might have experiences that seem so much so, but it's like, even, and awakening is infinitely expansive as well. That's another thing, is, and Leo Guru, I know, talks about this, is like, you can have a total awakening, but then you can have an infinitely more total awakening later, and they kind of grow off of each other, and there's no limit. So yeah, just saying, like, there's infinite more understanding, basically. There's no, like, point where you've reached complete God realization. Like, there's infinite more insights and nuances and metaphors and ways of learning and interpreting. Like, it's just the long process, basically. Don't, just be humble in a sense. Or you make a fool of yourself. Like I kind of did a little, not really, but like, it was still just part of the authentic journey. But it was like, just like, I was having awakenings, and it just made me think that I was like, that it was the top, basically. What you think you've seen, like the most total awakening, that's peanuts compared to what comes later, basically. And it seems to be a pattern that just continues like that. But yeah, bud. But what I'm interested in is kind of holistic spirituality, and it's like an integration of all of the dimensions of life. So in the 3D external kind of earth plane, success, money, etc., but also just understanding absolute truths, being aware, learning, just intelligence. Like there's so much to awakening, but like I don't like to see awakening simply as like it's not just one lane or one mountain. There's multiple mountains, multiple summits, and multiple false summits on the way up, because you can't see the whole thing all at the same time. That's what psychedelics can help you with. But yeah, it's just a holistic approach to life from like an authentic, spiritual, honest, truth-seeking, loving. It's just care for truth. Like, there's so many different definitions for spirituality. It's really hard to pin it down. It depends who you ask. Like Rabada Maharshi he just fucking stopped moving. He just woke up and then he just sat in a cave and just fucking got eaten by like rats and shit slowly, I swear. And he was like, I'm not the body. I don't know if that's exactly how it went down, but Inspector Veg was like, yeah, I'm not on that, bruv. Wait, you've got to get the fruits. And Inspector Veg don't like weed and shrooms, not really. I think he's actually... I need to get him on the fucking podcast. I need to pull him up on that. Because he had an ayahuasca retreat and shit, and I won't go into the details, but we got to get everyone fucking message Inspector Veg and tell him to come on the podcast. Literally, I'm not even joking, if you hear this message, go and message Inspector Veg on Instagram and tell him that he needs to fucking hop on Instagram live with me. He's a long guy. But yeah. So, and then Inspector Veg would think it's a lot more about food and health and diet, and then my mate who was eating the KFC thinks it doesn't matter about any of that, but that's what I mean. So there's so many different, and it's just because I've met spiritual people and they're just like, they're not really the same, and that's fine. You don't have to be the same, but I'm just saying, like, everyone has different ways of doing it, and just like in normal life, you know, there seems to be this kind of ego structure of like, if someone acts in a way that you wouldn't really act, or you don't really understand, you don't really get it in a sense, or like people can come with strange ideas or strange ways of interpreting things often, and I don't know, it's just, it doesn't matter, and obviously it's all relative. Like, I might be the strange one, and you will probably feel that about me, like, why am I this way? Everyone's different, aren't they, really? Yeah, I mean, everyone. It's weird, isn't it? Because who the fuck even... You gotta look into the no-self teaching of Buddhism. I was looking into that recently, it's trippy. It's like, basically, who am I? Where am I? And if you actually look properly, it's like, there's nothing there, because everything... You can't actually identify anything that's you exactly. It's like, everything's like no one thing you can go, yeah, that's me, because it's only kind of partly you. And then you ask a lot of questions about it, and you also, like, the idea of you is in the cognitive realm, so it's just an idea, and like, when that idea ain't there, neither are you. That's kind of how it seems. Weird, man, that no self thing, because I was listening to a video about it, and then I thought I got it for like a second, like a glimpse, and it's like I became the rest of the room. It's like there was like a limit that was removed off of me or something. Alan Watts is like, of course, if there's no self, then the problem that self is going through doesn't exist either. Or Illuminati Congo, I think he has a song called No Self, No Problem. It's because there's a story going, I'm depressed, and then you're like, who the fuck's that? And then you realise that you're not really maybe what you thought you was. It's really weird. That's another thing that I'm on about, is that's a facet of awakening, yeah, but most people in the group chats and I don't even know. I thought I was spiritual for ages, but when you actually look into the central teachings of like proper spirituality, or so it seems, with like deep meditation and the Buddhist schools and the teachings of non-duality, like some of the central like absolute truths. Most spiritual people have no idea about any of these, so that's what I mean. And when they bring them, like they think that spirituality is like the Phoenix event is going to come on the May 15th in 2040, I think, and maybe it will, and it's a part of spirituality, sure, but that's just in like the dualistic like colours and sounds, and then there's like 5-MeO DMT, which just takes you to pure infinity, or like, you know, like awakening. Some people as well. Also, this is a good example I should have said earlier. People think that awakening, like they think that they're awake and they're with the. And I'm not excluding anyone. I'm not being hateful. And yeah, like overall, we're all on the same stuff, and we learn from each other. And I'm very open with the community, and I'm a very communal person. But some people's idea of awakening or being like spiritually awake is just that. Don't get the COVID vaccine. That's what they think it is. That's like, they're like, fuck the government, bruv. I didn't, like, the pandemic was a fraud. And it's like, yeah, but have you ever been to the spiral realms? No. There's different degrees. There's political awakenings, metaphysical awakenings. But yeah, that's it, bruv. Alright. I've got to probably fuck off now. Do you know that tune by Mr. Traumatic? Survival of the wisest, or survival of the smartest, yeah. My mate Words, with a Z, is also a conscious rapper who spat on that. Both independently made their own raps on this beat of survival of the fittest. So I glued them together, now we got like an extended track with Traumatic's one at the front and then Words. And then I'm spitting on it now. And everyone in the group chats is spitting on it as well. So we're literally going to get a conscious rapper cypher. So look out for that, because it's going to be like a long rap of pure wisdom channeled straight from the fifth dimension. Check out our SoundCloud. We got demos and templates on there. Feel free to literally hop on it and message me, and obviously if it's fire enough, try anyway, see how it goes. But yeah, if it's good, then hop on it, bro. It'll be good stuff. But yeah, I'm good to go now. See you later. Peace out.